For more than 20 years, our next guest has worked to improve the lives of Riverside County, California residents as an elected official and a teacher at Rialto High School. He attended Harvard College and received a bachelor's degree in government in 1983. He serves as the vice-ranking member of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs and has worked on important pieces of legislation, such as the Harry W. Comrie GI Bill, named after our past national commander, and the VA Mission Act, signed into law 2 months ago. He is also a member of the Education and Workforce Committee and the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. Please welcome U.S. Representative Mark Takano.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Commander Rowand, for that kind introduction. And it is truly a great honor to be here in Minneapolis with all of you, celebrating an incredible milestone for the American Legion. Its 100th National Convention. 100 national conventions. This is something worth celebrating and an accomplishment to be proud of. For 100 years, each and every one of you and the Legionnaires who came before you have led and grown an organization that embodies the best of what the American people can create, not just for ourselves, but for each other, for veterans and their families, and for the future of our country and of our democracy. So today, I want us to reflect on the traditions and values that are the foundation of this organization. And I want us to reflect on the change you have created through your advocacy and the accomplishments that have moved the Legion one step closer to fulfilling its mission. And I want us to reflect on a shared vision we all hold, the not-so-radical belief that we can build an America that keeps its promises and leaves no one behind. First, I'd like to take a moment to thank a few distinguished guests in the audience and on the stage. The National Commander of the American Legion, Denis Rowand, who has made history by becoming the first female National Commander of the American Legion. Adjutant Dan Wheeler. And your Executive Director, Louis Celli. I also want to thank the past national commanders in the audience today who have led the American Legion with honor and integrity. Thank you all for your leadership. Thank you for your unyielding dedication to our country's veterans. "99 years ago in Paris, Americans formed the Legion so that they could keep fighting for the ideals that had brought our nation into World War I. They knew that the fight to spread justice, opportunity, fairness, and mutual helpfulness had not ended just because the battlefields of Europe no longer echoed with gunfire. They left the war behind, but kept ever before themselves the goal of making America, the country they loved, a more just nation. To promote and protect these ideals for future generations, the American Legion founded Boys State in 1935 as a way to engage young people with our democracy. Since its inception, Boys State has served the purpose of promoting the importance of civic participation at every level of government to uphold the promise of our democracy. Standing before you is a Boys State participant for the La Sierra High School class of 1979. And I'm proud to say that I have actually been inducted into the California Boys State Hall of Fame. I hope there's some Californians in the house today. Well, what a wonderful program Boys State is, and I know that nearly every chapter of the American Legion is involved in helping to raise the funds to send boys and girls, also the auxiliary, to Boys State, Girls State, Boys Nation, Girls Nation. Well, it's no accident that you, the Legion, created Boys State at a time when the ideals of freedom, equality, and democracy were under assault. The Legion's work helped unify our country at a time of great crisis, a time of great apprehension and fear. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, our nation unified behind the purpose of defeating the forces of fascism, authoritarianism, and totalitarianism. But there was an imperfection in that clarity and unity. And that imperfection was the error of our political leadership at the time to allow fear to make an exception of democratic values for a vulnerable group of American citizens. Japanese American men of draft age were excluded from military service. They were considered enemy aliens, unfit to serve, unfit to fight for their own country. Even during those difficult times, a highly motivated group of Japanese Americans, eager to prove their allegiance, eager to prove their patriotism, petitioned the U.S. government for their right to serve. I want you to imagine what it must have been like to see your family, your parents, your little brothers and sisters, your grandparents be incarcerated without due process, but yet still believe in the promise of America. President Roosevelt relented, allowing these men to form the 442nd Regimental Combat Team of the United States Army, a legendary segregated Japanese American fighting unit that was sent to the front lines of World War II, even as their families were interned back home. The 442nd became one of the most decorated units for its size and length of service in United States military history. It was known as the Purple Heart Battalion, amassing 21 Medals of Honor and more than 9,000 Purple Hearts. The motto of the 442nd was, "Go for broke," because these men were betting on America. They bet that America could be a more perfect union. And in the case of my great Uncle Mon, he bet his life. Through their persistent efforts to confront bigotry, the 442nd prevailed. I tell the story of my great uncles and the 442nd with great pride and a strong belief that if it wasn't for them, I would not be a member of Congress and I would not be addressing you at your 100th National Convention. Since our country's founding, immigrants and minorities have answered the call to serve under our flag and join the ranks of our armed services, just as my great uncles did. In return for their service, our country made immigrant recruits a promise: American citizenship. They were to become Americans, Americans by choice, recognized for their actions, protected from deportation from the country they love and call home. But many Americans would be shocked to learn that there are veterans who have been deported from our country even after serving honorably. Last year, I led a congressional delegation to the Deported Veteran Support House, commonly known as the Bunker, in Tijuana, Mexico. That's where I met Hector Barajas. In 1984, Hector Barajas was brought to the United States by his parents when he was just 7 years old. He grew up in California and went on to receive his green card, granting him legal status in the United States and the ability to join the military. In 1995, Hector went on to proudly serve in the 82nd Airborne Division. In 2001, Hector was honorably discharged after serving for 6 years. Upon his discharge, he faced invisible wounds and struggled to transition back into civilian life. He committed a crime, pleaded no contest to a charge, and served 2 years in prison. After Hector paid his dues to society, he faced the unexpected. He was deported from the country he had honorably served. Hector believed that enlisting in the Army would lead to automatic citizenship. He was, however, unaware of the naturalization process and had little to no information on how to apply for citizenship during his service. Once you're deported, it's difficult, nearly impossible for veterans to access the benefits they earned and to get the care they need. Sadly, there are many stories like Hector's. After his deportation to Mexico, Hector did not give up. He founded the Bunker and helped other deported veterans. He raised awareness about this injustice and worked to correct it. Now in Congress, many representatives, including myself, have taken up the mantle for Hector and other deported veterans, and because I believe that if anyone deserves a second chance in our country, it's our veterans. The good news is that Hector was pardoned for his crime by California Governor Jerry Brown, and the courts ruled that he could return to the U.S. and apply for citizenship. And I was happy to stand next to Hector as he became a naturalized U.S. citizen earlier this year. It's because of people like Hector that it is still possible to believe in an America that fulfills her promises. Hector's story is a story that embodies the ideal of mutual helpfulness enshrined in the American Legion's mission. The mission that has driven the Legion for nearly 100 years. With millions of active members, the American Legion stands strong and committed to the greater good. We face a world today where democratic institutions are being tested. That is why civics education efforts like Boys State are still important and relevant today. As a student, I experienced firsthand the value of Boys State and emerged with a better understanding of how our democracy functions. As a former teacher, I later witnessed the positive change in students who participated in the program. So long as programs like Boys State are available to help train the next generation of American leaders, I remain optimistic for the future. The power of your grassroots advocacy is reflected in the legislative successes you have achieved. The 1944 GI Bill is an example of your commitment to ensuring that our country fulfills the promises we made to our veterans in return for their service. And your recent advocacy efforts for the Forever GI Bill demonstrate that your pursuit of fair treatment for our veterans is unrelenting. In our hyper-partisan political environment, you have managed to bring representatives from both parties together. And let me tell you, having served in Congress for almost 6 years, that is not an easy thing to do, so congratulations to you. The Legion's successes are indicative of the value of engagement, advocacy, and commitment to our democracy. They reflect a democracy that, even as it is threatened by politics that seek to undermine it, can prevail and continue to work as intended. America only lives up to its promises when its people demand better, when we demand justice, when we hold our government accountable and ensure that it is working for all of us. As we prepare for the next Congress, I want you to look back at the Legion's accomplishments with pride. And I want you to be inspired by what your advocacy has done for the men and women who have served in uniform. But I especially want you to look ahead and think about what more you can accomplish, what we can accomplish together. As vice-ranking member of the Veterans Committee, of the Committee on Veterans Affairs, it fills me with great pride to know that our committee has been one of the most productive this Congress. We have passed significant pieces of legislation to protect VA whistleblowers, student veterans, and earned benefits. As a teacher, one of the committee's legislative accomplishments that brings me the greatest joy is the passage of the Forever GI Bill. With the support of the Legion and many other veteran service organizations, the House passed the Forever GI Bill with 405 votes in favor and 0 opposed. I am proud to have played a significant role in the negotiation of the Forever GI Bill. I fought hard to ensure that the bill included provisions to protect student veterans who were deceived by predatory for-profit institutions like ITT Tech and Corinthian colleges who targeted them, stole their GI benefits, and buried them under insurmountable debt. I'm proud to say that the provisions I added to this bill allow veterans to get their money back. These bipartisan reforms are a step in the right direction as we continue to demand that America keeps its promises to our veterans. Today, I want to share a vision for what the Committee on Veterans Affairs can accomplish in the 116th Congress. A shared vision of an America that lives up to the promises it made to our veterans and meets their needs. An America that dares to be better than it was yesterday and focuses on being better tomorrow. But as I like to say, a vision without a plan is just a dream, and I plan on working with you to make this vision a reality. The VA is one of our nation's largest institutions, and it has one of the most important missions, but efforts to undermine it have stagnated its progress. A lack of qualified, experienced management and improper oversight have threatened the quality of health care veterans receive and have limited access to their earned benefits. To reverse course and put the VA back on track, Congress should not only be prioritizing the proper implementation of the reforms we have already passed, but also must be looking ahead and building a future VA that can truly meet the needs of all our veterans. Members of Congress should be asking, is the VA doing its job today? And we must also be asking, what can the VA be for veterans 10 years from now? A forward-thinking approach would lay out a plan for high priority issues that must be addressed in the next decade. With a focus on management, quality and delivery of care, proper staffing, and cost efficiency, the VA can thrive in the present and flourish in the future. It should be a priority for the Committee on Veterans Affairs to protect the integrity of America's commitments to immigrant service members. We must ensure that every immigrant who has fought for our freedoms is able to obtain their U.S. citizenship. Congress can help our country uphold its promise and give rightful honor to every man and woman who has served, whether born in America or not. Having Commander Denis Rowand serve as the Legion's first female national commander is a long overdue achievement, one which underscores the significant contributions of women in the military and stresses the need for women leaders in the veterans advocacy space. Women and the experiences they bring with them should always be a part of the conversation when deciding how the VA can move forward and effectively support and meet the needs of women who have served. That is why we must make it a priority for women to have a seat at the table. Including at the head of the table. As we focus on creating a future where every veteran can succeed, improving transition programs and economic opportunities must be at the top of the list. The passage of the Forever GI Bill emphasizes the importance of safeguarding educational benefits. Whether it's community college, a four-year university, or an apprenticeship program, the Veterans Affairs Committee, working closely with the Committee on Education and the Workforce, must hold every institution accountable for delivering on the promise they make to student veterans. For-profit institutions that continue their predatory practices by cheating veterans out of their educational benefits, driving them into debt, forcing taxpayers to foot the bill, must be held accountable. The success of student veterans and their economic opportunities and their future depend on it. As I stand here before you, I commit to working with congressional Republicans, with Secretary Wilkie, and with the American Legion and other veteran service organizations, and with this White House to get things done for our veterans. In the next Congress, I'm going to work with you to fill the more than 30,000 employee vacancies across the VA that prevent veterans from accessing the benefits they have earned. I'm going to work with you to hold predatory for-profit colleges accountable for cheating veterans and failing to deliver on their promises. And while there will always be some form of care in the community to support the mission of the VA to serve veterans, I have great concern about the potential efforts to profiteer off of veterans. This would undermine veterans' health care, and as long as I'm in Congress, I will never let VA health care be privatized. Now, in closing, I would like to echo a message the late Senator John McCain left in his farewell letter to the nation. And this is what he said: "Do not despair of our present difficulties, but believe always in the promise and greatness of America." And I say to you, it is the promise of America that my great-uncle Mon, who was killed in action 5 months before the end of World War II, it is that promise he bet on. This promise is why the battle cry of the men of the 442nd, "Go for broke," is still so relevant today. When I tell people his story, I ask them if they think that my great-uncle won his bet with America. And I present myself as evidence that he did. I am proof that his sacrifice, that his bet was worth it, because I'm able to stand before you as a congressman, the greatest honor of my life. Today, let's all pledge to continue believing that this country is still the best bet for the promises of freedom, equality, and opportunity for all. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you for all the American Legion does for our country. Thank you all for your service. God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.